Welcome to Meditation Mount, and today, Sunday, April the 11th, 2021, is our 50th birthday. So we are delighted that you are joining us to celebrate this auspicious day. I know we're gathered from around the world. We're here in Ojai, Southern California. We're on the same planet. And in our heart, we are on the same wavelength. So let's take a time to gather our forces, to connect, so that we can take this journey together. Let us do so by taking a few gentle breaths, closing our eyes, and bringing our focus inside the heart. We become aware of the beating of our heart as it pumps the precious lifeblood around that living system we call the universe of self. At the heart of the system is the heart. And at the center of the heart there burns a flame of love. And so from the heart of each one of us, let us send out rays of this love to touch the hearts of all who are gathered on this call today, linking heart to heart to heart. And we weave together a matrix in which the fire of love can burn at the center of our common humanity. And we begin to sense the group heart, comprising the many hearts and the many heartbeats, now synchronized to beat as one heart. So this is the field of community and the field of communion that we've created together. Thank you. So today, in View from the Mount, I want us to look backwards to the past so that we can look forward to the future, so that we can be present in the now. So there is a deep history to Meditation Mount. We, like a number of other centers around the world, are part of what's called the Trans-Himalayan wisdom tradition. And this image is a painting by Nicholas Roerich of Kanchenjunga, the mountain of the 5 pearls, which always symbolizes the residence of illumined beings. And so we use this to characterize and capture that essence of our lineage, which is this eternal flame of wisdom that is passed down generation to generation through thousands of years. And it takes on slightly different forms, depending on what the needs of the time are. It's like an Olympic torch, a flame that's passed hand to hand through time. And it's now our time to carry that flame and to bring that light into the world. And inside the Trans-Himalayan wisdom tradition, there are many other streams and tributaries to this one flowing river. Some of them we know as the Theosophical Society, Steiner. There are many that came out of this. Krishnamurti was another. Here at Meditation Mount, we are part of the lineage that grew out of the work of someone we call the Tibetan, or the Master DK. And his task was to bring to the West the wisdom of the East, and to collect a group of people who could be trained not just to understand the concepts, but to learn to live them and to embody them, because it's through embodiment that the soul is revealed on earth, not just through an understanding of the information about the soul, but it's about living the soul. And in one of his books, and these are the books that we know as the Blue Books, the books that Alice Bailey wrote with the Tibetan, and just to clear up a misconception, many people think they're channeled books, but they're not. The Tibetan was living in a monastery just over the Indian-Tibetan border. He was in the body, and he found Alice Bailey, who could take dictation at a distance. This is pre-Zoom online technology. This is what we call good old-fashioned telepathy. This was mental faxes. So he would conceive of what he wanted to communicate, send the fax, Alice would receive it and write it down. And this is what we know as the volumes of the Bailey books. And inside one of those books called Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, the Tibetan says it would really be valuable if a united world group given to unanimous and simultaneous meditation on the work of preparing the world for a new order, and also to establish the knowledge of and the functioning of those laws and principles which will govern the coming era and this new civilization that's being born. So this is a statement he put out in his books. And the story of Meditation Mount really begins in 1950, because at the Arcane School Conference in Geneva, Roberto Assagioli, who was one of the Tibetan students, raised his hand, got up and said, I will take on this project as part of my life work. I will establish a worldwide group for creative meditation on the laws and principles, what we at Meditation Mount now call the principles and pathways. So he said yes, but he couldn't do it alone. And he looked for co-workers. And it took him a while, but after several years, he found two women, Nancy Magor and Michael Escott, and they formed the initiating triangle for the work of creative meditation in the world. And this was taken in 1954 in Tunbridge Wells in southern England. And then subsequent summers, a group met at Sundial House in the south of England, gathered from different parts of Europe and America. And one of the group members was a woman called Florence Garrigue from the United States. And Roberto asked Florence, would you please consider setting up this work in the United States? And Florence said, okay, I'll do it. And so after a number of years of getting things established, she moved from the East Coast to the West Coast and arrived in Ojai with the help of some donors, purchased a piece of land at the east end of the Ojai Valley, which is now Meditation Mount. This photograph was taken in 1969, and it shows the initial clearing to establish the mount. And at this time, Florence was 80 years old. So it's never too late to start your life mission. And I was told today by somebody who worked with her, she was 4'11", she was 80 years old, she was this firebrand, and whatever she felt had to be done was done. So here's what it looked like. And there's Florence leaning on her stick. And the architect involved was a woman called Zelma Wilson, and she designed Tibetan-style buildings. And here is on the left, Florence Garrigue and her co-worker, Frances Adams Moore, or Fran. So Florence and Fran were the two women who really carried the torch and were the visionaries and the leaders of Meditation Mount in the early years. And here's Florence in her study. And here we see Zelma Wilson's design. It's the Tibetan-inspired design that is this timeless east-west flavor, and it fits in with California. And so these buildings were erected. Here's the meditation room, and then landscaping was established slowly. And then in 1971, on April the 11th, 1971, they had the grand inauguration of Meditation Mount. And so 50 years later, here we are. So what's our work? What have we done? A lot has happened in the last 50 years, and I've been privileged to be part of it on the board for the past 21 years. So I've seen a lot of changes and a lot of deaths and rebirths. And one of the things that caused the latest death and rebirth was in December 2017, when the Thomas Fire swept through Meditation Mount. It destroyed about 80% of our vegetation. It destroyed, burnt to the ground one of the residences. And the auditorium that you can see behind me, the paint was blistered. The handles on the sliding doors were buckled. We nearly lost everything. But what it did, it stopped us and gave us permission to listen deeply of what was needed. And we listened to the land, and the land said, let's take a rest. And nature then started to regenerate as nature does. And then we decided that we weren't just going to restore the mount to what it was before, we were going to renew it like the phoenix. It was going to rise from the ashes and become something even more glorious and more splendid. So we spent many years, like the next 2 or 3 years, re-establishing the garden, upgrading the systems, repainting. And the systems include upgrading our office systems, our social media systems. We believe that a new spirit needed a new body, an upgraded body. And so that has been the work of the last 3 years. And then we opened last January, then COVID hit. And so we had to close again. And then now we have reopened in the last 3 months. Several times a week, we have time slots where people can come. And the Mount now is able to host people and to offer its deepest gift, which is a space for deep introspection and for going inside to really understand, who am I? So our job is not to tell people who they are, but in a moment, I will remind us of the 3 principles that the work of the Mount is based on, and we can explore that in more depth. But we did also install some physical objects, and I'd like to just show you some of that. The first one was on the solstice, the December solstice of last year. We installed a statue of Kuan Yin next to the meditation room. We were given this statue just before the Thomas Fire. And then we waited until everything had been renewed, and we found the perfect place for it. We created a mound. We placed Kuan Yin on the mound, and the tree on the right is a ginkgo tree. And today it was in leaf, and to the left is the meditation room. Why did we choose to put Kuan Yin there? It's not a religious symbol. It represents the principle of the divine feminine. So we prepared a 1-page handout for our guests. So let's read what we wrote so you understand why we installed Kuan Yin. At Meditation Mount, we understand the coming era to be one governed and guided by the soul and the divine feminine. The Kuan Yin statue next to the meditation room and office greets our visitors and honors and celebrates the feminine principle alive in each of us, regardless of gender. Kuan Yin is often referred to as the female Buddha, and according to legend was a beautiful Indian princess who forsook marriage and the good life to embark on the quest of becoming a truly enlightened being, or bodhisattva. And while standing at heaven's gate, so the story goes, after having achieved enlightenment and the right to enter nirvana, Kuan Yin heard a despairing cry coming from earth. And upon registering this sad utterance, she quickly returned and vowed to stay and help all those who suffer to achieve the same level of enlightenment that she had attained. And Kuan Yin's name means the one who hears all sounds of suffering in the world. So Kuan Yin is a deity of mercy and compassion and blesses all travelers and pilgrims on the path. And then we end with, may she bless your visit, and may she bless our gathering today. So let's talk briefly about the Divine Feminine. When something new has to be born, one has to create a space. The first act of creation is to create a space, to create the womb, and then one places the seed in the womb. In fact, the first symbol of creation is a circle. The second one is a point within the circle, which represents the seed being planted in the soil. So Kuan Yin represents that fecund field, that fertility that will allow us to give birth to the seeds of divinity that live inside us. And we're moving into the age of the feminine because the age of the feminine has that fiery compassion that allows new birth to develop and to flower. The mother principle and the principle of the feminine is so protective, but it's protective in a way that allows the flowering of the spirit. And so this is one of the reasons we feel that having a Kuan Yin statue at the Mount is a way of anchoring the feminine energy. Because at the moment, if you look around our planet, the energies are slightly out of balance. There's a lot of masculine or yang energy. This is Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin, Kuan Yang. In fact, we need the marriage of the divine feminine and the divine masculine inside of each person to bring forth the truth of who we are. And the same in our society. To build a new society, we need the balance. We need the communion of masculine and feminine so that the consummation of that communion can bring forth something that is even more rich and more glorious than what has gone before. So those are just some thoughts on Kuan Yin. So the other installation are two new skylights. One in the meditation room and one in the auditorium. So let's have a look at the meditation room first. If you look, and you'll see probably more closely as we go to the next image, you'll see the dove of peace, and above it, a star with 8 rays coming out of it. This is the star Sirius. And in the lineage that we're part of, Sirius is considered to be the portal of cosmic love into our part of the universe. And the spirit of peace, which is the peace that passeth all understanding, is when we are aligned with the deepest possible purpose we can. So we felt that in our meditation room, we wanted to have access to Sirius, the source of divine or cosmic love, and the spirit of peace, because peace is really when I come into resonance and my life is committed to serve a higher purpose. And so this is the new skylight, and it's made out of slumped glass. And it's been created by a local Ojai artist called Lynn Hegney. And she also created the skylight in the auditorium, which we'll see now. This is a larger one. This is 6 foot by 6 foot, nearly 2 meters by 2 meters. So let's have a look at the design here. And you'll see in the center a 5-petaled rose. And in a minute, we'll show you how that was created. The 5-petaled rose represents Venus. And this pattern was created by the orbits of Earth and Venus dancing around the sun 8 times. This is a scientific fact. This is an astronomical fact. This isn't fantasy. The creation of the 5-petaled rose, and the rose in the West always symbolizes the soul. As we know, one of the traditions, the Rosicrucian tradition, has as its greeting, "May the rose bloom on your cross." So that's part of the same lineage. But let's have a look at how this sacred geometry is traced in the heavens through the dance of Earth and Venus. It's magnificent. And 5 is the number of Venus. And so the relationship of Earth to Venus is interesting. It's moving from the 4 to the 5. And if you look at the astronomical sign for Earth, it's a circle with a cross in the middle. And that's the astrological sign as well. And if you look at the astrological sign of Venus, it's a cross with a circle on top, where instead of life being crucified inside a circle, Venus has now flowered. So on top of the cross is this circle. And that is also the destiny of Earth. And there's a deep relationship between Earth and Venus, as though Venus is our older sister who is saying, look, this is possible. You can flower. You can flower. You don't have to have your spirit imprisoned in matter forever. And so the relationship with Venus is very important. And we felt that having that particular pattern in the skylight would be a way of lifting us towards that planetary goal of the Earth, of Gaia, eventually becoming a sacred planet. Just like we have illumined beings who have mastered the classrooms. So there are planets, because the planets are also living beings. There are certain planets that have become illumined. The Earth is still becoming illumined. At the moment, we do not emit light. We reflect light. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, so the auditorium is now complete, and so is the meditation room. So with the installation of the skylights, for me, it was the spiritual circuitry of Meditation Mount had been completed. And meditating in the auditorium I've been doing it regularly for the past few weeks since we had the installation. It's a very different energy coming through. And today we hosted a birthday celebration down in the International Garden of Peace, but also in the auditorium. And as part of our celebration, we had meditations, we had some memories, but we also had music. There's a local composer and sound artist in Ojai called Shelley Burgon, and she brought her harp with her. And last week, I was privileged to go and listen to her while she was practicing in the auditorium. And so I'd like to share with you all now just a couple of minutes from Shelley playing in the auditorium. So you'll get a sense of what was reverberating in the ethers today at Meditation Mount, and particularly in the auditorium with the new skylight. So enjoy the sounds of the harp played by Shelley Burgon. Well, there you get a flavor of what it was like today. And the sounds just resonated through that space. And Shelley remarked when she was practicing in the auditorium and when she actually played today, is that her instrument joined with the auditorium as an instrument. And so they became one. It was quite a remarkable experience. So I believe that the arts have a true role in bringing in the renaissance of the soul. They're the carrier wave. The arts through resonance, because music is about resonance. And when we look at right relationship that we have with ourselves and others in the world around us, it's about being in right resonance with life. And so having Shelley play her harp as part of our celebration was magical. The other thing we did, because we wanted to not just talk about, but we wanted to experience the principles that are the bedrock of the work we do here. And so I'd like to offer a very brief experience of that. We'll take each principle and then go into a time of reflection. The first principle is that of essential divinity. And that says that inside of all of creation, inside of each of us, is a spark of the Creator. No matter by which name you choose to name the generative mystery, inside of each of us is a spark of the One, so that the One occupies the many. And if you want to look at the Bhagavad Gita, there's a passage there that amplifies what I've just said. And you may be familiar with the passage. Having pervaded the universe with a fragment of myself, yet I remain. Having pervaded the universe with a fragment of myself, put myself in everything, I still am. I am the one, I'm the many. Inside the many is the one. And it's that mystery of us being sacred fractals that I'd invite us to explore now. So go into the quiet space of the heart and just consider the possibility, if you don't already have this knowing. Take it as a hypothesis and test it out. Just say, I am essentially divine. I am a fractal of the one life. And then ask yourself, what difference will this make in my daily life if this is the core of my being? So dare to own the deep sovereignty of self. It's yours to claim. And yours to express. And I invite you to continue this exploration of essential divinity. So we'll leave that aside and we'll go to the principle of goodwill, which says that goodwill is the presence and earthly agent of divine love. So goodwill affirms that love is the lifeblood and currency of all relationship. It's that which circulates and nourishes and holds all things together. So go inside the heart. That's the easiest place to sense this fire of love. And goodwill is said to be the natural urge of the soul to give of its radiant self in blessing to others. So go inside the heart and sense the presence inside you of goodwill. And ask yourself, what difference will it make each day if I understand that I am an agent of divine love on earth? And then come back out, and this is just a little dip, and I just invite you to go back into and swim in the ocean. We're just sort of dipping our big spiritual toe into the waters here. And the third principle is called unanimity. And that says there is one seamless web of life, indivisible, that we are interdependent aspects of this one life. And that the notion of separation is really a temporary aberration. It's an illusion. Separation is not knowing that we are interconnected. So begin to sense inside your own universe all the atoms relating with each other to form your own universe of self. You have a coherent, I am, you are a coherent system. Our bodies are a coherent system of atoms. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And then we have relationship with the realms of nature, both the visible and invisible realms. So let's enter the silence again and sense that we are immersed in this one ocean of life. Unanimity means that we are always at home when we let love into our heart. And then we can ask ourselves, what difference will it make each day if when I meet another person or see an animal or pass by a rock or look at a bird in the sky, if I know that I'm connected, that we're connected, what difference will that make in my life about how I feel, how I think, how I act? So those are just brief explorations of the three principles, and you can continue to do that in your own time and space. So we're looking this year at Meditation Mount 2021. What does the world need? And we've come up with two themes. There are probably many more, and if you were to double click on these two themes, you'd probably get a whole array of them. But the two themes are hope and healing. The world needs healing because at the moment it appears that our common body of humanity is fractured. It needs to be brought back together because it is one body and it's been temporarily broken through ignorance, through fear, through hatred, through whatever. And it is the chalice into which new life can be poured. But as you know, you can't pour liquid into a broken cup. And so we have to repiece, reweave the torn fabric of our humanity, we have to piece together and reforge the chalice that is our common humanity. So that is the healing that needs to take place. And in order for something to be different, we have to plant new hopeful seeds. And the seeds always contain the promise of the future. But nothing will happen until they're planted in the soil. But if there isn't rich soil in which to plant the seeds, nothing will happen. And at the moment, there's a lot of rocky soil around. It isn't rich and fertile. It's hard. Hard with negative emotions, hard with hatred. We have to soften up. We have to enrich the soil. It has to be full of micro life. And that micro life is stimulated through loving kindness, through how we treat ourselves and each other and the environment. And so we looked at these two, and we will be focusing on both hope and healing. And we don't have the time in this broadcast to do an in-depth, but at least let's get a little touch of. So when we say healing, if you just for a moment look inside yourself and say, what inside of me do I sense that is broken, that needs to be healed, that needs to be brought together so that I feel more whole? What is it in my relationship with another that needs to be brought together and healed so that the relationship is whole? So these are reflections that we can do. And then we have to take action. And hope. Here at Meditation Mount, the work of creative meditation, as we heard in the beginning with this unanimous and simultaneous meditation, is to use the higher mind and the heart together to create these new thought forms of a better world, a more joyful and just world, a brighter future, whatever we want to call it. And then we give life to these seeds and we broadcast them, just like a farmer of old would go out and throw an ark of seeds into the soil. We broadcast, and now we broadcast through the ethers. Meditation Mount is broadcasting now and you're receiving it. And we, in our group meditation, we can broadcast these seeds of fiery hope that contain a promise of the future, so that it will inspire and capture the imagination of our brothers and sisters around the world. So let's now just very briefly imagine, back to the three principles. Imagine a world in the near future that recognizes the principle of essential divinity, where all life is sacred and respected. Imagine a future where love is the new currency of exchange and relationship. And imagine a future where we know ourselves to be one inseparable, indivisible web of life, that whatever I do to you, I do to myself, whatever I do to myself, I do to you. Whatever I do affects the whole. So let's take a few moments to imagine a future, a world where these principles are alive and form the foundation upon which we can build this new society. And we're going to accelerate the process a little. And then we take these images and this energy and we package it like in a seed, as a seed thought. And you know David Bohm, the scientist, the physicist, he talks about the enfolded universe that then unfolds. The seed is the enfolded promise of the future that when it's planted in the soil, it unfolds and reveals in the moment. the splendor of what's inside. And that's really our task, is to reveal the splendor of our human heritage by planting these seeds of hope in the rich soil of right relationship. I mean, it's a tall order, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to start sometime. So here and now is a great place. So that's just a sense of what's moving here at Meditation Mount now in response to the call of the times. The cries of suffering that we hear, but also the cries of a joyful future that people are sensing once they've liberated themselves from the prison of an emotional servitude or belief systems that imprison them in a certain way of thinking. So we're talking about liberation, just as the flower is the liberation from inside the seed of this divine potential. So the path of liberation is the path of the flowering of humanity. And Meditation Mount is here to serve the flowering of humanity, the full flowering of the human soul. I'd like to complete our time together by using an affirmation, go back to the two characters we named earlier in the broadcast, the Tibetan master, Master DK, and Roberto Assagioli was one of his students. And the Tibetan gave Roberto an affirmation to use just to keep his feet solid on the path and to reassure him that he was not alone. And I'd like to read this with you. I am a messenger of light. I am a pilgrim on the way of love. I do not walk alone, but know myself as one with all great souls and one with them in service. Their strength is mine. This strength I claim. My strength is theirs, and this I freely give. A soul, I walk on earth, I represent the one. So may we, each of us, represent the one, because we are the many, but inside the many is the one. Just as inside the ocean is composed of billions and billions of drops of water, but inside every drop there is the ocean, and the same with us. Inside every one is the wholeness that is waiting to be born. So may we be the carriers of hope. May we be the agents of healing to our world. And just a quick announcement of something that's happening next Sunday, Sunday, April the 18th. We have a broadcast called Signs of Hope, which is where we are in conversation with people who are actually being inspired and doing something about it. And we'll be interacting with Fumi Johns Stewart, who is the executive director of May Peace Prevail on Earth, which is the global peace organization. You're familiar with the Peace Poles. And also with Monica Willard, who is a charter member of the URI, the United Religions Initiative. And we'll be finding out from them their relationship with fiery hope and how we plant these seeds that are so needed. So let's just bring our time together to a close. And I thank you again for joining us on this auspicious day. It really does feel significant. We've reached 50 years old, and we're about to start another cycle of service. And we welcome your participation in this growing community of service that is based at Meditation Mount. And yet our work is to serve the world, not to serve Meditation Mount. We serve the world by serving through Meditation Mount. And so we welcome your support in any way. Prayers, financial contributions. If you live locally, to come up, volunteer, meditate with us. Our commitment is to maintain Meditation Mount as a beacon of light and fiery hope in these times where such centers are desperately needed. So thank you so much for your presence and participation, and good night from us here at Meditation Mount. Many blessings to you all.